So this is me, Deputy Programme Manager of the Learning and Teaching. So I support Anita Collins, who's the Programme Manager. And what we're going to look at, we're probably going to do sort of 15 minutes, a bit of a taster, because I really want to have time to talk through the programme, and I want to give allow time for you to have any questions. But I don't want to taste it. It's not me just talking to you, because that's actually not how we teach. It's very much a discussion between us, really. So in terms of, so what we're going to think about is creating a positive learning environment and what we kind of need to do that. So we're going to look at, consider three different spaces. We're going to think about the physical space, sort of inside our homes and outside. We're going to think about emotional space. And we're looking at children, but within this, we can think about ourselves as well. And actually, all these relate to adults, because actually, adults also need to feel safe and ready to be able to learn in terms of their emotions. And also the cognitive space. So to be able to, which is quite often in the education research, there's a lot of focus on the cognitive, less so on the emotional, especially with adult learners. But all these three elements, particularly with children, are really, really important. So first of all, thinking about physical spaces for learning, I want us to reflect about thinking about your own home. So this is like, if you do have children, or if you don't, just use your imagination. So what kind of spaces could you use in your home for learning? And you can put something in the chat, or if you want to put your microphone on, that's fine. I've lost everybody. I don't know what I've done. Basically, I can't see anybody. Really sorry.
Don't worry, Nadine. I've got an eye on the chat.
Okay.
And I can see people. So do like Nadine said, do put your microphone on if you'd like to, or put something in the chat.
Garden. Oh. Yasmin's put the garden. Fantastic. So kitchen. So do you want to expand? Have you got any examples of, so for example, in the garden, what types of things would you use that for play, for example, in the garden? Or Shelley, do you want to? Okay, so Yasmin said sports, brilliant. And Shelley said kitchen. So again, Shelley, do you want to expand and give us some examples? Like what can you do in the kitchen? Oh. So we've got Farah saying kitchen, painting and crafts. Shelley saying food, water. Yasmin, picnic. So in the garden, yeah, I love going in the garden and having a picnic. That's a brilliant one. And Shelley's put tools as well. And Yasmin's put arts and crafts in the garden. Fantastic. Yeah, it's quite nice to use found objects as well. So like twigs and kind of objects of nature, or maybe like stones, and paint those as well. Brilliant. What else about the kitchen? Has anyone got any examples of using the kitchen as a learning space?
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, really clear. Thank you.
So I don't know, so quantities, so you could be filling the water, or looking how much is lots and little, or you know, the hot and the cold in the way you're cooking, and just generally using and exploring the sensory materials that the kitchen offers, such as the food or the different textures of the utensils that you've got, or
yeah, brilliant. I love the fact that you talked about that sort of sensory element. So whether it's taste or touch. I mean, I remember when my daughter was quite young, she used to love to get everything out of the cupboards, all the pans, and like, so she'd kind of make her own drum set with like a wooden spoon and the pans and everything like that. Brilliant. Thank you so much for putting on your microphone and contributing. No, I really appreciate.
Thanks.
I'm just having a look at some of the other. So I'm interested with the tools one as well, Shelley. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
So the utensils really.
Okay.
So looking at the utensils and how you use them, chopping, carefully chopping with the knives or the forks, or looking at the big spoons and kind of the weighing, the measuring, and looking at how you work with the oven and how you use the microwave, or how you weigh out things with the scales, or just the general, how you use that again, the ICT with the computer, the washing machine or the dryer, or that's kind of the tools as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because there can be lots of toys that you can buy that replicate kitchen utilities, but actually just use the kitchen as it is, use what's actually there. Yeah, brilliant. And Yasmin's put baking together. That's a really good example. I don't know if you want to expand on that, Yasmin. If you want to put something in the chat, or if you want to put your microphone on.
I mean, baking together, so making like chocolate crispies or something step by step with your children. So then
chocolate crispies, why would you do, so give me, who would decide that? Is that your idea? Would it be the children's idea?
I think the children can decide. It can be both.
Brilliant,
You can just get little sprinkles and things and let them decorate it. It's like if there's Easter coming up, you can do little mini eggs on it and things like that, just relate it to topics.
Fantastic. So I make it, fun. So it's great sort of getting ideas from the children, making it really fun, thinking about different themes that are happening. Brilliant. Thank you so much for contributing that. I really do appreciate. Okay. Then what about, so thinking outside of where you live now in your local area, obviously we all live in different spaces. Some of us might be more in the city, some of us might be a bit more urban. What do you have in your local area? So for example, where I live, this picture here is not actually where I live, but it's very much a bit like that. We've got bits of parks and woodland. So my daughter's always laughing because I come home with like mud all the time because I'm always going out my wellies. So what kind of resources do you have where you are for learning? Oh, St. Ives. Oh my gosh, you are so lucky. That is an incredible space. I don't know if, Yasmin, if you want to talk about what St. Ives is, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So St. Ives, you can go for a walk. You've got like a play area. And there's lots of things children can explore there. You can take like football. You can have a picnic. It's a really nice day out. I mean, I'm literally around the corner from it, to be fair.
Oh, you're so lucky. I'm very jealous. I love that space. It's brilliant because you've got so much, haven't you? You've got like the play area. Yeah. Then you've got that big,
there's like a skateboard area and things. There's quite a few things.
And there's like a little lake, isn't there? And then you've got those like wooden sculptures or something. Like when you go, I mean, it's a huge, you can get lost, can't you, walking around?
Yeah.
All around there. Thank you so much. And the canal is amazing as well. Yeah. So cycling along the canal, or just even looking at the wildlife along the canal as well. Brilliant. Sarah, I don't know if you want to talk about your park, if you want to share what kind of learning activities there are in your local park, or you can put something in the chat.
My park it's got swings, it's got a big field. They're able to play football, any ball games. We actually have during the summer quite a few groups coming down and doing activities with the local kids.
Oh, that's fantastic, because with lots of funding cuts, there's less of that going on. So I'm really chuffed to hear that that's happening where you live.
Actually local people from our local area that do it themselves.
Wow,
so get together, put some on for the kids, just bring quite a few games down, have drinks, fruit for them, and they all join in. Anyone's allowed to join in, so it's really good.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because it's kind of some things for children can be quite expensive, but actually at the end of the day, we don't need to have much money to do something, because you can have like the best day out, you know, bringing your own food, and like we said earlier, making a bit of a picnic of it, and kind of that's building that kind of social interaction and giving them that confidence.
Well, that's it. We have really good social interaction with a very diverse community. I'm based in Chapeltown.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
So we have a lot of different cultures coming together, and it's amazing seeing everyone being in one place together and enjoying themselves.
And as well, without realizing it, that sort of sharing of different cultures is just so powerful, isn't it? Kind of learning from each other, and especially food related. So great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sana, I don't know if you've got something to add about your park. It's the same or different to what other people have said. You can put something in the chat, but don't feel like you have to if you don't want to. So, and as well, thinking about these different spaces, it's kind of, oh wow, you've got a zoo nearby. Fantastic. Would you mind telling us about that? Like, what's in the zoo? Sounds great. Sounds really great. Okay. Oh, I think I've lost my mouse. So yeah, and obviously we can move in and out of these spaces, so from like bring the outside in, and you know, I mean, I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, I've definitely been making much more use of the sort of local surroundings, and actually I've discovered, I don't know if anyone's discovered anything new during the pandemic that they hadn't known was available before. Like, for example, I found this amazing sort of spot where people go to watch loads of different birds, and I didn't even know that existed. And there's another kind of like bug hotel that I hadn't seen before. I've just seen your comments on them. Thank you. Oh, meerkats. I love meerkats. That's not the one near Roundhay, is it? No, I haven't been to that one for ages. I know they've got meerkats there. Right, okay, no, I haven't heard of that. Right, Pondicherry, no, never heard of that zoo. Ponderosa Zoo. Okay, so thank you so much for your contributions. It's fine, it's in Dewsbury. So now we're thinking about, so where we learn in terms of the space will impact us. It'll impact us in terms of how we can physically move around. It'll impact us in terms of how we can socialize with others and who is there to socialize with, like we talked about different cultures earlier. So now if we think about the emotional space, and this really relates to adult learners as well, because we bring ourselves to the learning space as do children. We don't just leave ourselves at the door. And what I mean by that is whatever's happening in our family, we might be worried about something, or we might be really excited and looking forward to something, and we don't just forget about that when we go to learn. So when we're working with children, it's just making sure that, you know, we create that sort of psychological safe space to make sure that we sort of, you know, we exhibit kindness, we show lots of patience, we try not to sort of be hurrying them along to the next stage or the next development mile. Try to really show that sort of genuine interest and their curiosity, and show that we're really, if they express maybe that they're struggling with something, that we show genuine concern. We don't just kind of belittle what they're saying. Make them feel safe by setting really clear boundaries. Kind of, this is what we're going to do then, and this is what we're going to do later. And so children kind of know what's expected of them. And as well as that, the sort of routines and making sure, again, so there's kind of like an expectation about what's going to happen when, and some sense of, so there isn't kind of like too much spontaneity. Obviously a bit of spontaneity is fine, but generally speaking, just making sure, so for example, if you've done like a really, really busy activity, then having some space just to like calm down and maybe talk through things and that kind of thing. And then just really hand holding those different transitions in and out of different activities, and sort of explain what we're going to do next and what that might involve, especially if it's something new that we haven't done before. So there isn't kind of like a surprise, and that can be really relevant to learners with S.E.N.D in particular. I don't know if you're reflecting on this, and it could be, you know, in your place of work or with your own children, or maybe some sort of friends or family, you know, have you got any examples of creating an emotional space for learning? Is there anything that you do that you know that works?
So I work in a children's centre, and we offer a visual timetable for children, for all children, regardless whether they have S.E.N.D or if they're neurotypical. So we use a large group visual timetable, so the children know what the routine is and what's going to come next. And
Brilliant example. Thank you so much for that. That's great. And I like the way that you're saying, because actually when we change something in our practice for certain learning challenges, it inevitably benefits everybody, like you've just said, and that is the same for adults as well. Thank you very much, Shirley. Has anybody else got any other examples?
I like to use emotion cards on the morning. So they're out on the desk in a little folder for each child. So I just have like a class of 7 because they're S.E.N.D children with different needs. So they come in the morning and then they'll choose if it's green, they're focused and happy. Someone might put up tired or sad. They might choose they're angry or frustrated, and then it just sort of prepares me so I know how they're feeling, and then I'll just have a little talk to the individual, just why they're feeling sad or why they're tired, just so then I know what to expect throughout the day and like why they're feeling the way they are in the morning.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And that empowers them to be able to label, because once you can label emotions, it can be less, because it can be quite scary, can't it? If, you know, especially if it's something that can be perceived as being a negative emotion. If actually a child can label it, then it kind of externalizes that, and then we can have some strategies for how to deal with that. Yeah, that's brilliant. Really good examples. Thank you so much for sharing that. Any other examples that you use? Anybody else? I think some adults could do with that. You know, it'd be great. You know, you could have like little cards at work. I'm just having a bad day.
To be honest, I have a set for myself and my TA as well.
Brilliant.
So it's all of us.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's okay to sometimes feel tired or a little bit frustrated or cross on the morning. I also have a calm space that I've created for my children. So it was a room that was just empty on the side and nobody was really using it. It's like a storage space. So I emptied it out and I use it as a calm space. So when I know one of them are feeling a bit too excited or a little bit down, so I've got like emotion books in there so they can just go and draw, they can read, just with a bean bag, and there's some cushions and a little blanket if they're tired. It's just like a calm room. I also pray in that room, so they know that I go and use that for my little bit of time out when I need to pray. So it's like a quieter room for a calm space for some of them. They like using.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. It's kind of having different spaces with the kind of artifacts that we can put in there.
Yeah, we do have an awful door. Well, we call it the awful room, but it's a timeout room down the corridor, which we don't really like going into. They're like, oh, so I've not had to personally put anybody in there yet. Mine tend to prefer the calm room because the timeout room's right cold and it's a room that we don't really like using.
Yeah. And again, as adults, I don't know about you, but I can create my own version of that home with like calming music. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And I've just had a look. Cheryl said, yeah, quiet and uncluttered, that kind of space. Yep, fantastic, brilliant. So there's all really, really good examples. So we've gone from sort of thinking about the physical space, whether it's outside in nature or sort of inside the building, to having a psychological space in terms of being ready for learning. And then the cognitive, which obviously is a big part of learning, and thinking about focus, rule, and pace. So thinking about the activity that's going to take part with the children, you know, what you might do first thing in the morning might be different to what you'll do after lunch, might be different when they're just about to break up to go on holidays. So it depends, different times of the year, different times of the day, and obviously different children, all children are unique. So they're going to have different abilities of focus, and depends on the tasks as well, obviously. Thinking about the appropriate length for an activity. So sort of chunking learning and having breaks and different topics as well. So rather than just having one thing that sort of goes on and on and on and on. And actually this really relates to adult learners as well. We don't ever just talk for like 2 hours. We generally just introduce a topic. It might take 15-20 minutes as a new concept, and then we're talking about it. We go into groups, and it's very active learning. And then in addition to thinking about the sort of focus and the rule, it's the pace of the activity. So thinking about what is the right way to go about this activity, in thinking about the unique child and what they want in terms of the activity. So not to rush it, but just to go at their pace and be sort of very child-led. And also to think, again, this brings us back, is how they're all sort of interconnected. This brings us back into thinking about this space as well. So thinking about any sort of the noise levels. Is it going to be too loud for certain children? You know, is there too much visual stuff going on? So really thinking, sort of analysing appropriately for whatever the activity that is. So if it's kind of a reading activity, we might want to, you know, dim the lights a little bit, or kind of choose a certain place to go to. And just as children might need some quiet to focus, we're very aware that as adults, we also need that. And in particular, some of our learners who've got dyslexia, for example, you know, it's very rare that we ask people to read in the sessions, but if we do, sometimes we always sort of ask everyone to be quiet so that everybody can focus and sort of concentrate. In contrast, you know, there are some children that might need music to really help them focus, or I'm actually 50 next year, and I'm going through a diagnosis for ADHD, and so I know that I need something to listen to help me concentrate. I really struggle with just quietness. I've always got my headphones on, so I totally relate to that. And then thinking about sort of different types of activities. So some that might be more kind of planned and more kind of, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. Others where you just give the objects for play and let the children kind of experiment really and sort of find their own way dealing with that. So I'd like you to think about how can we create a sense of wonder and curiosity. So thinking about let's say an adult with children, how can we support their sense of wonder in an activity and their sort of curiosity? What kind of tips would you think of using to do that? And again, you can put it in the chat if you want, or put your microphone on. So where I'm going with this is, rather than sort of telling a child what it is, how could we kind of encourage their curiosity?
By asking open-ended questions.
Yep, fantastic. Open-ended questions, brilliant.
Letting them explore.
Excellent. Letting them explore. It's really easy.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Just talking through it with them. So if they are curious about anything, answering their questions and just letting them really explore, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And letting them get messy. I've just seen in there. Yeah. Fantastic. Right, I've just realised we've only got, I want to go through the programme. So I just think we'll wrap up that taste there. We had such brilliant input from the Learning Champions earlier, which is really, really important. But this is just giving you a bit of a flavour of kind of how we teach. So our sessions are generally like this, where we kind of introduce concepts. So the other things that we were going to talk about was just things like motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic, and then we're going to look at different forms of communication. But what we're going to do now is go on to talking about the programme itself. And Fiona, would you mind just talking through this slide? Because I know you're better at the finances than I am, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. And I was just going to put in the chat as well, we'll send you Nadine's presentation. So even though we haven't been able to cover the whole thing, you'll get an idea And just to say thank you for all your contributions, everybody. I can see there's an awful lot of expertise and knowledge in our Zoom room. So yes, student finance, people will know different levels of information about this, but the main thing to know is that it's not money that you have to personally have to give to the university. The way it works is that nearly everybody is eligible for a government loan, and this covers the fees and can also cover living costs. So the only times where you wouldn't be eligible for this is if you've already done a degree, or if you've come from another country and have recently come to the UK, because it depends on people's residency status. So this student loan, I'll tell you a bit about it, because calling it a student loan didn't really help anything, because people think, oh, it's a personal loan, it's going to affect my credit history, I might not be able to get it. But in fact, it's not like that at all. It's actually, like I said, something that the government pays the university for the fees, and you may also get some money. So the thing about it, you don't need to start paying it back till you're earning over £27,000. And then you just pay back a small amount. So it's actually 9% of everything that you earn over £27,000. So as an example, if you're earning £30,000 a year, you would pay back £30 a month. And somebody said to me, oh, it's just like a phone contract in some ways the other day. So it's almost thinking about it like that. If you never earn that much, you never pay it back. If you're, say, earning that much and then you go part-time and your salary drops, it just automatically stops being paid. And the thing is, you don't even have to remember to pay it. It's your employer who pays it. So, you know, at the end of the month, you might get your wage slip and you'll get your salary, and then you'll get tax and national insurance, and the third line will be student loan, and that just gets taken out. So it's not something you have to remember or you can get into arrears for. It is very much like a graduate tax, but it was not called a graduate tax. So it's really about the repayments. That's the important, you know, that's the thing to think about, rather than the amount. To be honest, most people do not, you know, will never pay back their student loan, and it gets written off after 30 years and it doesn't get passed on to anybody else. So I would say, you know, if possible, it's not something to worry about, because it's just how the system works. And please do put questions in the chat, because I know the finance is obviously a big issue for lots of people. You can also talk through the finance side with our guidance workers as well. The other points that are mentioned here, there's money available for disability support or support, you know, in different ways, and also for childcare. And yeah, like I said, after 30 years, all debt is wiped. So I guess our main message is, don't let the fear of the loan and the finance stop you from finding out what your options are. Come and see our guidance workers and talk it through, because remember, it's not something that is going to affect your credit history or your ability to get a mortgage. It's just the system that the government has put in place. So has anybody got any questions about this? No? Okay, if you do think of any, please do put them in the chat. Okay, shall I hand back to you?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and yeah, just if you get a question about this later on, you know, do just put it in the chat. But we've got reminders of who else you can go to as well after this. So our program is kind of divided. We've kind of got two cohorts really. We've kind of got some students that are doing the learning and teaching, and we've got other students that do the learning and teaching special education needs and disabilities route. You don't have to decide straight away really. It's kind of because actually when you join the program, some students, you know, you might join thinking you're going to do learning and teaching and then decide to do more S.E.N.D modules. You kind of find your way around really. You'll get some core modules that everybody has to do, which I'll talk you through in a minute. And then there's other modules that you can pick and choose. We've got students that are in nursery all the way up to sort of further education. We've had people volunteering in the community. There's lots of people doing sort of in loads of different types of settings. It's not everybody working in a school. As long as it's kind of in a learning and teaching setting, which is a very, very wide kind of catchment, that's absolutely fine. So the way that our programme is taught is it's one afternoon a week, 1 till 5. So we have, so Shno and Murray, who spoke to you just earlier, they come in on a Tuesday because they're the first years. Wednesday afternoon, we have the second and third years. And then Helen, who talked to you earlier, she's on a BA top-up and she comes in on a Thursday with the BA year 1s and 2s. We have, throughout the whole of the year, there's only 20 weeks of teaching. So sort of late September to December is what we call the first semester. And we actually stop. So any of you that have got children, when it's the half term, we don't teach. So there's no teaching that takes place then. And then late January to May, there's another 10 weeks, but there's also the half term, and then there's about 4 weeks off for Easter. So, but it's basically 20 weeks out of the year is when you'll actually be in sessions 1 afternoon a week. The foundation degree is 3 years part-time. It does sound like a long time. Every single year, the third years are like, where's that gone? It just absolutely flies by. And all our students, as long as they've obviously achieved all their modules, have got the automatic right to do the top-up, which is what Helen's doing now, working on her starting to work on her research project. Some students, so we recently had somebody finish in January, so you can do it in 18 months to be a top-up, but most students do finish in the May time. These are sort of the typical entry requirements. So GCSE, Maths and English, but if you don't have that, don't worry, because we have our own equivalent tests that you can take. And also some people might be coming in with sort of a level 3 relevant diploma, but again, not everybody. It really depends. So we look at your application in relation to your lived experience. So for example, some people might come in with previous experience in a kind of learning and teaching related setting. But what you do all have to have is a minimum of 60 hours a year relevant work experience, and that can be voluntary. And that's because our teaching is very much about theory and practice. So I don't know if there's any questions about this slide in particular.
Nadine, could I just say something about the part-time kind of nature of the course and the length it takes?
Yeah.
Just to say, I meet people who, you know, when they're starting the course, they might say to me, oh, it feels like a long time. But then I meet them when they start and they say, well, actually, it fits in with my life. So I'm going to university, you know, maybe 1 day a week, but it means I can carry on working and I can carry on, you know, being at home with the children, and I can do everything else. So actually, if it fits in with you, that's the most important thing. And it's giving you that space to do the studying and everything else. But I know we have got a good question from Yasmin. What if we're working full time? Is there an evening session?
So most of our students are working full time, and what they do is they ask their employer for the afternoon off to come to university. We don't have an evening session at the moment. There's a few optional modules that you can take, which are on our child and family studies pathway, and some of them can be a little bit later in the day. But yeah, all hours are within the hours of 1 till 5. So it means asking your employer to get the afternoon off. So you'll have to see what whether you'd get paid for that, because sometimes, but again, anything to do with finance, we've got people to support you. I can show the slide later on for that.
And can I just add, Nadine, obviously it depends on your employer, but I think sometimes people are able to negotiate with their employer because they're, you know, improving themselves and improving their own practice. So it's actually benefiting the employer as well. But I completely understand that employers vary as well. But yeah, please do talk through with our guidance workers.
So we have, I'm just really aware of time, so I'll go through these quite quickly. In the first year, these are our core modules. So I teach the academic professional skills, and then Anita does the how do learners learn. So those are the two modules that Mari and Shano's just finished. They're now doing child development and typical and atypical and inclusion and S.E.N.D. So you can see already all of our students are already, you know, even if they're doing the learning and teaching pathway, not S.E.N.D, they're still covering S.E.N.D as a core module. And then in year 2, we have developing teaching skills. We've got quite a political module where we sort of look at perspectives and policy and education and sort of critique the education system. And then only the students that are doing S.E.N.D routes do a work-based learning. So they're actually in the workplace and they do sort of reflective blogs and sort of things like that. And then in year 3, our students start to learn about educational research methods. Again, have quite a critical module looking at the curriculum and assessment, and it's brilliant. I've taught that module for a few years and it gets some really brilliant debates going on. And then creating learning resources is a fantastic module where students identify an issue that needs improving in their setting and create and develop something. We have other optional modules, such as these with dyslexia. We've got creative using stories, mentoring, counselling skills. So these are things that not everybody will do, but you can sort of pick and choose and start to create your own kind of learning journey, really. Our whole programme is based on sort of theory and practice, which is why you need your 60 hours a year, because when we're talking, very much like tonight in the taster, we always relate it back to, well, how does that work in reality? We've got students that have gone on to do lots of different things. So inevitably, so for example, there's quite a few students to come in as a teaching assistant, and then as they go through the programme, they might go to a higher level, and then they might start taking more responsibility or go into a different school. And it does really start to change over the years. And we've had lots of students that have gone to postgrad study. So there's loads of different pathways, and we're getting the alumni, the students that have graduated, to come in and talk to our current students. So we've really got this brilliant network of Helen's put there that she really enjoyed educational perspectives. This isn't all the programme team, but this is just to give you a bit of an overview of some of the key staff that work. There's Anita, who's a programme manager, that's me, there's Sally, and there's Sam as well. I'm sorry, that was a bit of a very quick, I just don't want to kind of take too much of your time, but I just, any questions about that so far? And whilst I'm asking you that, I'm going to put this on as a reminder for the guidance staff to contact. Any questions about sort of where, I mean, so for example, we don't teach in lecture rooms. It's kind of more flat tables, lots of group work. So you don't just sit listening. It's very, very active learning.
Just on the finance side, can I add, Nadine, that we can help you apply for the finance. So the finance is administered by Student Finance England, and we have somebody within our centre called Paul who can help you with that. So it's all online, and he's a real expert in that. But yeah, I would also definitely discuss it. You can see our guidance workers, Denise and Mohammed here, discuss it with one of our guidance workers.
So any questions? I know that was a bit rushed, but is there any questions about anything that we've talked about tonight? And if not, I'll put my email address in here. You can always drop me an email. Bear with me.
I could also add about the app, you know, if anyone's thinking, oh, I'd definitely like to apply, it's very easy to apply because it's a part-time route. You would just, if you look at the Lifelong Learning Centre website to the relevant to the learning and teaching programme, there's just an email that you would email and ask them to send you a application form. So it's an online form, and then you would just then have an interview with Nadine and Anita. So it's all very informal, and just talk it through that way. but really our kind of aim is that you make an informed choice, you know what all your options are before you apply.